Assad issuing his first statement after fleeing Syria. Massive Western airstrikes in the Middle East. And Russian ships destroyed in the Black Sea. This and more on Dangerous Waters. This is the Dangerous Waters podcast, where we dive deep into dangerous waters. I'm your host, Alex, and in today's episode, we have a lot to talk about. First, massive news of the day: Bashar al-Assad, former president of Syria, ousted by coup, has just issued his first statement regarding the events that happened. And for context, he was evacuated to Moscow, Russia, where he currently resides, after ruling Syria for over 20 years. Now, this statement that just came out is quite lengthy. I have the screenshot up, but essentially it boils down to an Assad who is defensive in nature, who believes that he was justified in his actions in his rulership over Syria, and is now worried about the future of Syria, knowing that, in his view, terrorists are now in control of the nation. Let me just read off a couple of quotes that I found interesting from his statement. He says, quote, "At no point did I consider stepping down or seeking refuge." He also says, "I have never sought positions for personal gain, but I have always considered myself a custodian of a national project." He also says that when the state falls into the hands of terrorism and the ability to make a meaningful contribution is lost, any position becomes void of purpose. Riding off of the back of what was just announced by Assad, let's take a look at what Israel conducted in Tartus, Syria. Tartus is a major naval port for the Russian side. It is a city right on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, and Israel recently just conducted airstrikes in the city, destroying a massive ammo depot. Such a large amount of ammunition exploded to the point that some people are falsely claiming that Israel launched a nuclear strike in the region. Obviously, this is fake news, but once again, this is an extension of Israel's current policy toward Iran, which is to take advantage of the power instability and completely destroy any and all military assets that they can get their hands on, and just wipe out the potential of the next Syrian regime being capable of threatening regional interests for Israel in any meaningful way. By destroying their military, they have to rebuild from the ground up, and that is Israel's goal in this matter. Alongside Israeli airstrikes, we also saw American and British airstrikes going on against Yemen, especially the Houthi rebel group in Yemen. The Houthis are a Iran-backed force which has a lot of Iran's weapons, including anti-ship missiles, ballistic missiles, drones that are capable of reaching into Israel. We've seen them launch drone and missile strikes against Israel multiple times during the war. However, the US and British air forces just conducted a joint strike in the area to target Yemeni's assets. We don't have much clarifying information on this other than confirmations from the US military that a strike was indeed conducted. However, this goes to show that there continues to be interest in slowly crippling Iran's allies. Whether or not this strike is actually successful or meaningful or significant in any strategic way is hard to say for sure, considering the lack of information that we have. However, it is within American and Western interests in general to weaken Iran's allies in the region. In other news, we have 2 Russian oil tankers which have been completely disabled in the Black Sea. These 2 ships, Volganeft 212 and Volganeft 239, were carrying oil, and unfortunately, because of a massive storm happening in the Black Sea, they were completely crippled. Volganeft 212 was split in half. It just completely destroyed. 12 people were rescued. One person was unfortunately killed in the accident. Meanwhile, Volganev 239 ran aground and was not able to survive either. The two ships combined were carrying around 62,000 barrels of oil, which comes out to 9,200 metric tons. It is really unfortunate to see this level of oil spillage in the Black Sea, major ecological disaster, and I think there's some level of irony considering that this attack by nature was happening right in the Kerch region, which is a major hub between the Russian mainland as well as their newly annexed Crimea since 2014. They've built an impressively long bridge that they've been trying to protect throughout the entirety of the Ukraine war, including with air defense systems of all different types, as well as even attack dolphins, which are able to surveil and potentially cause damage to enemy invading ships. Let's segment into what is going on in the United States. First off, biggest story of the day, and it's been happening for the last few days, drones. There have been so many spottings of drones around the country and even around the world. What the hell is going on with this? There are all sorts of coverage from different media, recordings of drones, a lot of misinformation thrown into the mix as well, and confusion. Now, essentially, what I think it boils down to is this is a federal operation. This is something coming out of the U.S. government. They are releasing cryptic statements about their information of these drones. They're saying, especially Alexander Mayorkas, DHS secretary, has been saying that they don't have the authority to shoot down these drones. Well, they never said they don't have the capacity to shoot down the drones. They don't have the authority, which means that these drones are controlled by players within the U.S. government. Furthermore, we have some reports of drones, at least from the footage, showing that they have FAA compliant lighting on the drones, which means that these are under federal guidelines. They are under federal regulations. Now, the implications of this are huge because if, let's say, you're a foreign country, you're China, Russia, Iran, or even far-fetched, let's say you are an alien race and you're coming down to observe the Earth and see what's going on, are you going to have FAA compliant lighting on your drones? Probably not. If you're one of these countries, the last thing you care about is compliance with federal regulations. What you care about is, can you get the job done in an undetectable manner? Can you be able to collect this information and not get spotted by the public? Well, they are probably the dumbest people or aliens in the universe if they went out of their way to ensure that they can actually complete some sort of mission while purposely shooting themselves in the foot by having this lighting. Furthermore, we see a lot of people out there who have been mistaking common objects in the sky as drones. Obviously, when it's at night, it's hard to see, and then you combine that with video from cell phones where the cameras are not really designed to record in low light situations. But the result is that a lot of common objects, such as planes flying in the sky, or even, this is the funny part, even stars have been mistaken as drones in the sky. I've seen this video on X where someone was saying, look, there's a cluster of drones, they're not moving, and in the community notes, in the bottom, it says, oh, this is actually a cluster of stars. This is a constellation of stars. And I think that's really funny. It's just like a type of, in my opinion, it's a level of mass hysteria that's going on with these drones. Now, I don't really know what the purpose of this is. Only the feds know at this point. But is this some kind of PSYOP campaign where people are trying to figure out what kind of reaction we can gain from the public? How will people react? Like, is this some kind of attempt at mass hysteria? Is this some kind of attempt to recover nuclear objects? I don't know. I don't think anyone really who knows will be saying the truth anytime soon. So just keep posted. We'll see what's going to happen in the future. I really hope this gets cleared up. But for now, it's not a safety concern, according to the feds. There's really no reason to panic. So just enjoy the news, laugh at it a little bit. Think of it as a distraction from the other world events that are going on, other ones that are much more consequential. Moving on, we have news that Trump won a $15 million defamation lawsuit against ABC and George Stephanopoulos. This is a major decision in which George Stephanopoulos previously has stated that Trump was essentially liable for rape, and this was overturned by the judge, and now they're forced to issue an apology and pay $15 million in damages to Trump. They decided to donate this money to the Trump Presidential Library. Very important case here because it shows that out of many, many cases that the Trump team has put out against mainstream media outlets, they finally have one that was actually successful. Maybe a turn of the tide going on in the legal scene. Hard to really say for sure, but this is good news for Trump, good news for his allies, knowing that he is finally able to receive some level of reprieve for the really mainstream media onslaught against him and his campaign. It's truly been an onslaught. The percentage of negative coverage on Trump is well beyond 90% in the mainstream media, whereas if you compare that with previous political figures, it was, I would say, the opposite. 10% negative, 90% positive, especially looking at President Obama in the past. While we're on the topic of presidential politics, we have a news story from CNN discussing the future of Kamala Harris. According to the article, she really has three major paths to take that she is considering. The first being running for the gubernatorial position in the state of California in 2026. Her second option is to wait until 2028 and run for president again. Her final option is to call it quits in the realm of politics and public service, sign a book deal, create some kind of organization, and just run behind the scenes from there. Let's talk about what each of these decisions mean. Her first option, which would be to run for the governor of California in 2026, would be more achievable for her, but it would also be a sort of capstone of her political career. She started her career in California, and with this decision, the intention is that she would sort of end it in California. She would rise to the top of California politics. She has a lot of momentum to do this already. CNN has talked to potential Democratic candidates for the position who have said they would back out in a race against Kamala Harris. The next option is that she would not run for governorship and instead run for president in 2028. This is a very difficult decision because a lot of her aides believe that she has the momentum to carry it forward in 2028 after Trump is done, after the Republicans will have a sort of identity crisis moving forward on who they want to pick to represent the party in the future. This is where Kamala Harris comes in. She had a strong election campaign in 2024, raising over $1 billion, and they're saying, oh, maybe she has the momentum again. She could take the stand and finally win presidency. However, the thought process going against this is that if she does end up failing to secure the presidency in the next election, it would essentially be for nothing. Her political career would just be over entirely. She would not have any more sway. She would kind of be seen as a failure of a politician, and really that's the last thing that her aides and people around her want, and her herself. She doesn't want that either. So it's a high-risk, high-reward gamble if she decides to run for presidency in the next election. Her final choice would be to just call it quits from public service, and this is also possible, but it seems unlikely. I don't think Kamala is the type of person who wants to do that. She spent decades of her time in public service, and I believe she wants to continue that. She wants to maintain a strong reputation among her followers. She's been coming out with statements recently saying that she would not let down her supporters. She would not go quietly into the night. So it's more than likely that the third option is off the table. So we're really just looking at whether she wants to run for governor in 2026 or presidency in 2028. For our last segment, let's get right into rapid fire news. We have Israel, which just closed their embassy in Ireland, citing anti-Semitism, while Ireland responded by saying they were following international law. Israel also expanded Golan Heights settlements and saying that their presence will be permanent. U.S. forces were seen occupying a former Russian base that was evacuated in Syria. Ukraine releases new combat footage alleging the involvement of North Korean troops. And we have the worst cyclone in 90 years, which hit the French island of Mayotte off the coast of Africa, with possibly thousands feared dead. Finally, Luigi Mangione, the CEO killer, has raised over $100,000 in his legal defense fund. With that being said, thank you for listening to Dangerous Waters. If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. I'll see you all in the next one.